A lot of us have a complicated relationship with the word accountability. In our hyper-individualist society, many of us grow up believing we are accountable only to ourselves and to whatever version of God we inevitably create in our own image. If someone else does something bad, it's not our fault and not our problem, unless it is so bad that it breaks the law, and in that case, it's off to prison with the offender, assuming they're found guilty, of course, or off to the throes of internet mob justice. This is strikingly different than the image of just accountability we are presented with in today's readings. Rather than ignoring someone's harmful behavior or flying off to the authorities, both the first reading of Exodus and the Gospel of Matthew give us detailed instructions on how it is the responsibility of every community member to lovingly hold our neighbors accountable for their behavior. When we see wrongdoing happening around us, we are tasked by God to intervene, not just to stop the harm from happening, but also to call our neighbor back into right relationship with the community. We don't have to do it alone. Jesus invites us to appeal to family and friends for help, but we do have to do it. Otherwise, we become bystanders, bearing real responsibility for the harm we chose not to stop. If you're like me, though, there's a part of these readings that makes my skin crawl. And it's not just because of the natural discomfort that comes with calling out bad behavior and calling in a neighbor. It's because we've seen this message twisted and taken in a horrible direction. We've seen extreme fundamentalist Christians, like the Westboro Baptist Church, calling out what they deem to be bad behavior, usually just a queer person living authentically or someone practicing a different religion, and justifying their cruelty with Bible verses like this. It's an act of love, they say, to call people out in this derogatory, threatening, and very public way. So, how do we honor these readings' insistence on accountability without becoming cruel, pedantic, or hypocritical? Jesus tells us, if calling in our neighbor to seek justice doesn't work, don't dig in our heels. Instead, treat them like Gentiles or tax collectors. And how did Jesus treat Gentiles and tax collectors? He befriended them. He dined with them. He healed them. He spoke to them and listened to them. It's a clever way to trick us disciples into loving people harder. There will be times when maintaining firm boundaries is necessary to keep us safe, especially if we're the ones being harmed. But we are not called to give up on each other, or on ourselves, or on the very real and ever-present possibility of redemptive love. Real love, which does no evil to the neighbor, as St. Paul tells us today, and therefore is the fulfillment of the law.